Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pro Football Historian channel. I'm your host, Flynn Given. Today, we'll discuss and review and recap all of Week 5's games. And then tomorrow, we'll preview Week 6. So, this was the last week that teams didn't have buys until, later in the year. Let's start off with the London game, since we already kind of discussed the Broncos and Colts game, and I don't think we need to discuss that game, to be honest. So this is the game. The Packers came out. They pretty much dominated the game first half. They played pretty well. Probably the best offense looked, but just like every other game this year, they pretty much just play one half. Giants pretty much, for if you count the whole game and look at it all, they outcoached the Packers, and that's been a story of the Packers for whatever reason. They're kind of just playing what they want to play and not really game planning against teams. Looking at reports, it looks like they will, because of this loss, they're actually going to start changing their defense. And maybe, I don't know if they're going to be more aggressive, maybe they're going to play different coverages, but defensively, this was a disappointing game. They did have a few sacks that were called back because of penalty. Just uncharacteristically, they had a lot of penalties that typically they don't do. Packers don't have. And, second half, they do a ball down the field and they take a sack. And that takes them out of field goal range. Next drive is a 3-and-out. And then they have the other drive that gets down to inside like the 10 or so. And, it's fourth down. They obviously had a bad pass on third down. Fourth down, same thing, bad pass on a pass that was trying to go to Allen Lazard. And then the last drive was a Hail Mary attempt that ultimately Audrey got sacked and, falling the ball. And they recovered, but it was fourth down, obviously. So overall, though, a lot of third down conversions for the Giants, especially third and long. And the Packers didn't give up, I think, a 3rd and 8 or longer all year. So it's just strange from that standpoint. The Giants had a lot of injuries coming in this game. So a really good win for the Giants. Just, you think the Packers are going to really self-scout themselves after this game. We'll see where that goes. But Giants pull this off, and they go to 4-1. While the Packers fall to 3-2. And now this game, this was a blowout, obviously 38-3. The Bills were up 31-3 at the half. And just early in the game, 98-yard touchdown to Gabe Davis, where he was pretty much double covered. They just allowed him to go right by him, by the safety in the corner. And then Gabe Davis had another touchdown that was contested with Micah Fitzpatrick for a 62-yard touchdown. And then they had a Diggs touchdown, a Shakir touchdown. Josh Allen looked great in this game. And, they played back us for the most of the part, the rest of the game. And Pittsburgh, obviously, at the point where they need to see what they got in their quarterback. He still can't run the ball, can't really protect the passer too well. And they got the weapons, at least receiver-wise. You think even Najee Harris is a good player. I don't know what he, obviously didn't have 2 yards to carry in this game. I know that doesn't really mean how good the player is, but Warren had more yards on only 5 carries. Just how their team has been. The defense, they're not fully healthy, but this wasn't even a team that could run the ball. So, they're going to have some issues. It's going to be hard. Who knows when TJ Watt gets back and all that. So, I think this is going to be a typical story for the Steelers this year. Not a great start, and they're obviously in a rebuilding phase. And they got the defense is pretty close to being there, and, they need a really, obviously, patch of the offensive line. we'll see what they do. They're trying to still run the ball. Maybe their best way of attacking is just letting Pickett throw the ball, spread offense, or you know, something like that, where they get the ball. Kind of like the last few years of Ben Roethlisberger's career might be ultimately what they try to do on offense. And for the Bills, they got a great match against the Chiefs. They're 4-1, and obviously very well could have been 5-0, but still pretty good spot. And they have the target on their back coming in the year, and they're playing well. They're not really disappointing. They look great in most of the games they played this year, and good win for the Bills. Moving on, this is somewhat of an odd game. Obviously, this is a shootout last year in LA. Now it's in Cleveland. Browns get up a little lead, 14-0. The Chargers come back. That was back and forth game pretty much the whole way. And then you had an odd fourth quarter, at least last 5 minutes, where you have Jacoby Brissett throwing a bad pick in the end zone, and you have the Chargers going for on a fourth down in their own territory, up by 2, and then the Browns get the ball and they miss the field goal with the rookie kicker Cade York. And so either team could have won. You don't really feel better or worse on these teams. Just, it's going to be hard. Browns are trying to get as many wins as they can. And then hopefully when Watson, if he does return, you could maybe compete for a playoff spot. It's looking less and less like that. But especially with this loss, the Chargers are just trying to stay with, if not for the division, at least a wild card spot. Since the Chiefs are a 4-1 football team. Moving on, we got Jacksonville and the Texans. I would say Jacksonville, they moved the ball somewhat okay, at least down inside the 30 or 20. But they just couldn't capitalize on a lot of drives, a lot of fourth downs they didn't get. And they just took some of the points. I know it's Doug Peterson's mindset, and you would think you would convert at least one, but they didn't. And then you have the pick in the end zone that Trevor Lawrence throws. He throws a pick, obviously, then he on a Hail Mary. It was just short. Besides that, they look like the better team, and this is the 9th loss, I think, consecutively against the Texans. Good win for the Texans. They finally get a win on the year, because you don't know how many more or if any they're going to get the rest of the year. Bad loss for Jacksonville. You got some promise in the season, and you have the loss of the Eagles, but then this loss is, I don't know if it kills the momentum, but you just have to second guess, is this even a team that can compete for the division? We don't know where Jacksonville is for the most part right now. They got some talent, but there's some weak points on their teams, and teams are realizing they can run the ball against some of their defensive interior linemen for Jacksonville. Offensively, they're a work in progress. And Trevor Lawrence is still learning how to play quarterback at the NFL level. I mean, that's the same thing for Davis Mills, but Texans ultimately did not turn the ball over, and that's why they won this game. Bears Vikings. This is another game. Vikings come up big lead. They let the Bears score before half. A touchdown by Montgomery, and they let the Bears get the ball in the second half. They get another touchdown, and it makes it a close game. They missed the extra point, obviously. They kick a field goal. They kick another field goal. The Bears got a lead at this point, and then the Vikings just get one drive going. They score, and then Bears try to go down the field again, and they Smith-Worset fumbles the football, gets stripped from Dantzler, and that's the end of the game. And and then we also have the Thursday night game, so it's another loss. They're 2-4 currently. They're 2-3 after this game. For the Vikings, the Packers lost. They're up a game plus the division. They got the tiebreaker at this point because they still play one more time, but they played in week 1. The Vikings won. So they're in good pace, but they're going to get some tougher games coming up, and we'll see how good the Vikings team is. Obviously, they play a third-string quarterback this week, but still a good team. Maybe not a healthy team, but a good team. And in this game, I did say I thought New England was going to make this a low-scoring game. I will say Detroit kind of beat themselves as dumb calls. It ultimately hurt them, and then the interception didn't help either early on. They go for it. You could see though for New England side, they could they were a little bit afraid of Detroit's running game, but as soon as Detroit, went four downs and turned it over, the interception happened, and they just got behind, and then their defense isn't very good in Detroit, and they just allowed the Patriots to run with Stevenson, and they did what they need to, and they shut out the highest scoring team at that point in the season. Obviously, they're not that anymore. Still think Detroit has some pieces, some things going offensively, but defense is definitely a big question for this team. And New England, they get wins. So they're 2-3. They're not in a bad spot. They've been competitive. And, whenever Mac Jones returns, that should help them. But I think this is just an average football team. Well, they got great coaches, but the players aren't, the roster isn't overall spectacular. And it's a fine team. Moving on. Got a shootout. It was a game for at least Seattle standpoint. A lot of small games, but it had a lot of explosive plays. And then for the Saints, it was not much besides some Kamara, 100 yards, but the Taysom Hill plays, the 4 touchdowns he had, 3 rushing. That was, you could say, the difference in this game. It's unfortunate also for the Seahawks that Penny got hurt, but I do like Walker. Ken Walker, I think he's going to be a really good running back. So they don't lose a ton there. I mean, Penny's a good player, but I think Walker's also a pretty good player. So, you like that boat, but the future, I guess, is here. And Penny seems like I think he's out for the year, and I would doubt he'll return just after an injury. And, get a 1-year deal. And for the Saints, they're still not healthy. You're trying to at least, if you can try to stay 500 or about until your team is healthy, maybe you can make a run for the playoffs. Division's probably not going to happen. And then for Seattle, you got Cardinals team coming up. Obviously, we're not expecting a lot from this team, but they've been competitive in the most part of the season. Obviously, the 49ers did beat them pretty good. But Geno Smith is playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the league so far. And, it's working what they want to do. Defensively, they're not great. And that's the reason they're 2-3. We got a Dolphins-Jets game where Jets didn't really beat them this much. You could see the fourth quarter. They had 3 touchdowns. That's 21 points right there. It was a 17-19 game. But, Skylar Thompson was fine. The pick didn't help. Bridgewater only played 1 play, got hurt, concussion, and they didn't allow him to come back in the game. For the Jets, they had some play, not anything crazy other than like a Breece Hall big catch. Other than that, defense played really well for Miami, and you could say the Jets defense played pretty good. It's a pretty close game. It's just the score doesn't indicate that, but it is a good win for the Jets. They haven't won a division game. I think the last 12 they lost, so puts them in a 3-2 record. I do like the Jets. Just got still more tough games to go, and then their schedule gets started to get easy. And I wouldn't rule out playoffs. I don't know if it's likely, but you just want them to be a competitive team. At least I would think that's what Jets fans at least are hoping for. So far they've been that. Miami obviously lost 2 in a row. They just need to get their team healthy, and we got a Minnesota team. They could have a chance even with their third string quarterback, or even Bridgewater gets able to return. either way, I wouldn't. I don't think Miami's in trouble or anything. I think they can turn around. Now, this game, obviously, most people are going to be talking about the pass interference. Sorry, the roughing the passer call, which was a big play. I will say, Tampa Bay dominated this game. I don't know what happened really later on, but the Buccaneers couldn't really sustain drives and really couldn't run the ball. They tried to pass a lot, and it was a lot of more shorter completions. Especially a lot to Fournette, 10 catches. The Atlanta, I will say, the defense line is relatively a bigger defensive line. It can help them stop the run. Um, you know, Brady's one touchdown, the Fournette, and you have a big play to Mike Evans. I got him to that big, the 21-0 lead. And then Lance started to get some drives going. And, obviously that call made a big difference in the game because it gives them a chance to go down the field. And who knows what happens. Tampa Bay still could win it. And Atlanta obviously would have had a shot to win it. And it's unfortunate it didn't happen, but that's how the game and the refs called it. Obviously, Boger and that crew are getting flack about it, but there's another game coming up, where you could say a similar thing. This game again, Tennessee getting a lead. I think they just kind of run out of tricks, and people then start realizing, let's just stop Derrick Henry, and it really slows this offense down. For Washington, just a slow start again, kind of like in Detroit. I mean, they had De'Ami Brown big plays, but besides that, not much. Bo Wentz played fine. Obviously, the interception late did not help, but that was, if I'm correct, actually, that was a third down. So they would, if he didn't throw the interception, they would have one more shot. And ultimately, it wasn't there. Shouldn't have forced it, but they ultimately lose and went to 1-4. But they did get the win Thursday against the Bears. I think Tennessee's still in good position. Washington division, even playoffs are unlikely at this point. Still early. And in this game, this was just domination pretty much. I mean, the Panthers defense played fine. Still had some trouble stopping the run, which just might be what they are. They're going to be pretty good against pass, but stopping the run, not great. They kind of had the personnel to do both. They don't get the ball to their playmakers they give a lot. They don't sustain drives though. McCaffrey did get the ball, get him out, but again, DJ Moore just 4 catches, better than I think last week, but not great. Rob Aronson only 1 catch, and obviously they fired their coach after this game. I know Baker threw a bad interception, I think before the half. So 43 seconds of the half. Baker's now hurt. They're going to start probably P.J. Walker this week. And, Steve Wilkes is now the interim head coach. I honestly don't see how that going to boost the team. I know maybe they like to play for Steve Wilkes. But, I mean, if anything, maybe the defense plays better. It could be playing worse just because who knows with, who's calling the defense, if he's still doing it, and if this move even helps them. But I don't see how this helps offensively. You still have Ben McAdoo doing all that. So, don't see that changing the Panthers much. But they got, surprisingly, you could say a winnable game, but it's not that winnable. Like they're underdog by 11 points. And San Fran, back in the, they're back in it. And they've looked really good, very talented team. Just like the Eagles are another very talented team. And they kind of run out of tricks. They kind of pass the ball a little too much, especially start games, but did enough to win this game. They give the Cardinals a chance late in the game, and then they missed a chip shot field goal after they spiked the ball on a 3rd and inches play. it's just what happened, and it, I mean, you should still make it. It should be a tie game, but kicker misses a chip shot, Amendola, and it gives the Eagles a win, and the Cardinals are now 2-3, and they got a very tough schedule this year. I don't really see many more wins coming about, and just how it is. It's just how the season's going to play out, and I think I don't really view them as one of the worst teams in the division. I mean, they got Seattle this week. I think they're a little bit better than them, but they still could lose that game. The Rams, I think, eventually will turn out, but I don't think they're anything like last year. The 49ers are still a pretty good team. Get Dallas, team that looked really good defensively. They're still playing that conservative offense, doing enough to win the games. Rams just can't protect. They don't have enough. There's really nothing explosive about the team. They other than Cooper Kupp maybe, and Atwell made one big play. Besides that, Kupp made a big 75-yard touchdown play against Trayvon Diggs and man coverage, it looked like. And, Stafford fumbling early on and giving him a touchdown. Well, really it wasn't his fault, but I guess he could have held on the ball. But DeMarcus Lawrence scores on that, puts him down the hole, and they just never could get back other than making it a 9-10 game at one point. And then they just didn't score any points the rest of the game. And I think it's going to continue to be somewhat of an issue. I don't know if they're going to overcome the bad run game, offensive line, and really have nothing else than Cooper Kupp, on the outside or even in the slot. Like Atwell is just a deep threat, occasional guy they will use. Skoranek, does everything for them. Well, does a bunch of different things. They got Higbee's a solid tight end, but Robinson just doesn't look great, and they paid a lot of money for him, and they're just team isn't looking great, but the defense is still fine, still good defense. But Dallas' defense looks really good. I think if the teams when we preview the games, you can maybe run on them. They don't have great safety. Maybe that changes how they want to play defensively. If they have trouble with the run, and that could give you a chance to take advantage. But if you can't run against Dallas, their defense is gonna look really good, just like it did in this game. Sunday night game, Ravens take a lead. They look good, and then Lamar throws a bad pick, overthrow. Bengals get back in the game, but ultimately back and forth at the last 2 minutes. The Ravens squeak out this game with a victory. And again, the Bengals just too simple. Like, it's the same thing every week, and they have a great receiving core, great weapons, and just having a hard time with they're so obvious what they want to do. Teams don't want them to have to play anything tricky. Like the Ravens just played a lot of simple zone coverages, and the Bengals just struggled with it. Obviously, their offensive line isn't great, and even the Ravens' defensive front made some plays against his offensive line, showing you it's not very good. The Bengals' offensive line, and then even though the Bengals' defense played pretty well, this is a lot of issue for the Bengals, and maybe they'll start changing it. Who knows? They haven't in the last few years. They've pretty much been the same. So then last year's record looks great. Teams are going to play in this way, and until they learn or make some adjustments, they're going to struggle to, win games. They got a tough opponent in the Saints, match up pretty well against them. Another thing, for the Ravens side, they still are not that great with defense. They allowed this offensive line, and they have pretty much 5 yards to carry the Bengals against this defense, which is not good at all. This is a team that's barely averaged 3 yards to carry. And I think still the Ravens a pretty good team. They could have won every game. And I guess you could say they could have lost most of the games too. But they're in a good spot. Division, they're in control of it pretty much. I mean, Bengals, they still play the Bengals. I think it's them and the Bengals. And maybe the Browns. I think the Steelers are going to probably be out of it. Another team that's probably out of it is the Raiders. When they lose this game, they're 1-4 now. I still think they're an okay football team. Just haven't had the luck or the same type of, they haven't won these close games like they did last year. And obviously, both teams went for 2 and both failed, which was a story of this game. Those 2-point conversions and those decisions, and then also the roughing the passer on Chris Jones controversy there. And then I guess at the end of the game, you say the Raiders still had a chance. Davante Adams can't keep his feet in bounds and keep the ball in his hands on a third down play, which goes out of bounds. It's incomplete, and then him and Renfro collide on a fourth down, and then they have ball thing after the game with Davante and I don't know who it was, some guy obviously working at the stadium, and you got the whole issue there. But again, I think the Chiefs are a really good football team, though. You could say team might be able to run against them, and I also think the Raiders found something in their run game last week against, last week against Denver, and now really 2 weeks ago, and now going in this game, they pretty much showed the same thing. Jacobs looked pretty good, and I think they're going to lean on him a bit more. And when hopefully they get Waller back, it should help them. That is week 5, and that was the recap for week 5. Appreciate you listening. Thanks for watching. And check out my preview of week 6 tomorrow, which will be uploaded. And have a great day.